Hi, I'm Dr. Kate Altizer, and in this video, I'm going to introduce you to Zoltán Kodály's exciting orchestral suite, Háry János. In this video, we'll talk about Kodály's biography and relationship to Hungarian folk music, and we'll talk a little bit about the plot of Háry János and a little bit of what you might expect to hear. Like every composer on this program, Zoltán Kodály had an active musical life beyond composition. He was born into a musical family and heard and played chamber music at home, and encountered Hungarian folk singing from his fellow students in grade school. He earned composition and teaching degrees and a PhD in philology, for which he wrote a thesis on Hungarian folk song structures. He's most famous as a music educator. During his lifetime, he was very invested in music education and singing reform in Hungary, adding folk songs into the repertory and developing methodologies that would be influential around the world. As part of his research, Kodály traveled to the Hungarian countryside to collect and catalog folk songs, working with composer Béla Bartók. In 1906, the two composers released an anthology of their transcriptions of Hungarian folk songs, hoping to, in their words, reacquaint Hungarian citizens with their musical heritage. Háry János was first a Singspiel, meaning a stage work that contained both music and spoken text, and it was an enduring success in Hungary as an epic drama. It was first of three works that Kodály wrote for the musical stage, with the goal of reintroducing both Hungarian folk songs and folklore to the Hungarian public through theater. Háry János premiered on October 16, 1926, in Budapest, conducted by Nándor Rékai. The story goes something like this. János, who is a known figure in Hungarian lore, is a veteran who returns to his native village and spins highly embellished tales of his life as a soldier. At the village inn, Háry is telling of his many adventures. In one, he opens the borders to travelers despite the sentries. In another, the Princess Marie-Louise enrolls Háry in the Imperial Guard. He accepts, but forces the princess to guarantee food and beverage for himself and his horse, as well as the ability of his fiancée to travel with him to Vienna. In Vienna, Háry, who has made himself a doctor, recommending treatment for the sickness of the emperor, becomes a darling of the princess. Jealous, his court rivals send Háry off to meet Napoleon and his army, who, of course, Háry defeats by himself. Háry and the princess are to wed, but Háry, who is but a simple man after all, decides to return home to his village and his original fiancée, after finding a suitable partner for the princess and forcing the emperor to guarantee not to oppress the Hungarian people. The tale is over the top and tongue-in-cheek, and this piece is a rare example of Kodály's humor coming out in composition. Shortly after, Kodály transformed the Singspiel into an orchestral suite, and the piece has found much more international fame than the stage work. Toscanini was one of the first to include it in his programs. You can see from the order of the Singspiel pictured that the movements in the suite differ from the stage work. You don't need to worry about reading the individual movements. I just want you to notice the bulk of movements in the Singspiel versus in the suite. Within the suite itself, we can group the movements into odd and even. 1, 3, and 5 provide context and contain many evocations of Hungarian folk music, such as the cimbalom instrument and folk song melodies. 2, 4, and 6 tell a story and contain almost parodistic or mocking tones in their music. In this way, the suite presents a divide between village and court, the rural and the urban, the rustic and the sophisticated. The listening guide for this suite has more details about the program and musical materials, but I do want to take a moment to reflect on how the suite opens. In movies, when we hear a narrator, we're inclined to automatically believe what they tell us. But occasionally, for example, in American Beauty, American Psycho, Shutter Island, Sunset Boulevard, Rashomon, etc., we get an unreliable narrator who is speaking to us, but not actually telling us the truth. Well, it can happen in music too. The suite opens with a signal that what is to be told next is fantasy. In Kodály's original program notes, he wrote, quote, According to Hungarian superstition, if a statement is followed by a sneeze of one of the hearers, it is regarded as confirmation of its truth. The suite begins with a sneeze of this kind. One of Háry's group of faithful listeners sneezes at the wildest assertions of the old tale spinner. You'll hear this sneeze in the form of low trills, like the moment your body knows it's about to sneeze but can't quite, followed by an ascending orchestral scale with percussion that peaks in volume as it hits the highest pitch, before coming back down much softer. Achoo! For the rest of the suite, as I mentioned, it's generally interesting to listen for the contrast in odd and even movements, with the odd often being more folk-like and the even ones evoking some of the powerful figures that Háry encounters in a tongue-in-cheek way. For example, listen to how the second movement, Viennese musical clock, uses a very regular phrase structure as a means of evoking the urban, the realm of, quote, culture. The movement immediately following, song, is dreamier, freer sounding, and more folk-like, with a solo vocal instrument taking the melody. This movement also introduces the cimbalom, the dulcimer instrument originating in Hungary, linking the movement closely with Hungary and less so to a Germanic influence. The Battle and Defeat of Napoleon uses a range of brass instruments to evoke the pompous, bumbling Napoleonic army. Listen here to the glissandi, or slides, in the tuba and trombone. Both of these are instruments commonly associated with outdoor military might, when they're allowed to play sweeping melodies or add a noble punctuation. Here, the percussion sets up a military association, but the low brass slides make these instruments sound more comical than heroic. For additional musical detail, make sure to check out the listening guide linked on the DuPage Symphony Orchestra website. There, I've outlined some of the movements of the suite. The goal of the listening guide is both to remind you what's happening in the story, as well as to offer your ears some compelling moments to pay attention to. I hope you enjoy this fun, evocative, thrilling piece live in November with the DuPage Symphony Orchestra.